All right, recording. This is the Get Serious with Go Flow with Your Pro after the Animus workshop here in Cape Town. And today is Sunday, May 28th, 2023, and we're just finishing up our warm-up. So everybody needs to always make sure that you have some form of warm-up, even if you only have 60 seconds, just to stand there in your posture and take a few big breaths. Not 1, 2, or 3. I'm talking between 5 and 10. Nice, slow, big breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. Preferably, if you only have a little bit of time, stretch and warm up your spine. If you have a little bit more time than that, stretch and warm up all your connective tissue. Your neck, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists, especially being a flow artist, you're going to be using your arms, neck, and head a lot, especially your wrists. Also your hips, knees, and ankles. We didn't really do that, but we will. If you have the time, though, take enough time that you can really feel the shift in energy, where you feel both a high sense of energy but also calm. This is what you want, especially if you're going to perform fire, because the fire is going to build your energy up, build the audience energy up. And if you've ever done a professional performance or performance in front of anyone, you will get the shakes at first. Your adrenaline will be peaked, because what we're doing goes against our instincts. It's a little bit like skydiving. It doesn't make sense to our primal minds to do it, to spin fire or a heavy object or something around yourself, unless you're doing it for self-defense, like that's it. But for a performance in front of people and trying to woo or appease an audience, it's not necessarily second nature, but it will become second nature the more you can learn how to get your body to breathe and move all together. Eventually it's really cool, because I know how to create essentially a manual flow state. And that's what you really want. You want to be in the flow state while you're performing, because then it's fun and you're at your peak. You're at your best and that point. It doesn't seem like it's work. But the audience and your clients and stuff will be the most pleased with you, because everybody's going to connect to that energy. And believe it or not, it's not so much about how skillful you are as a flow artist. It doesn't matter that you know all the best and latest tricks and stuff like that, because for the most part, people aren't going to be able to know what they're looking at, because they're not experienced like you are. So even some basic movements to them on fire, done quickly, or in some sort of form or fashion that you've trained yourself to be, is going to be like wow to them, something they've never seen before. And it's really pleasing. So first and foremost, you have to set in your mind, just like I was showing you out there, you've already embodied your end result. Remember that the future is now. The future is going to happen now. If you're trying to reach for the future, and granted, there will be aspects, of course, of that, because you haven't become at your peak level yet, and there will be a constant reach. But most of your effort happens mostly with you just embodying what it is your end result is now. So first note for yourself, and go ahead and write this out. What is your end result? Without even me going through the exercises, I want you you already know this, you've already seen this picture. You've seen other people doing it. Maybe you take a mix match of some of your favorite flow artists or things that you've seen online, and go ahead and just put it into an idea of yourself. I'm going to give you 5 minutes just to write down, what is your ideal profession look like as it relates to flow arts? And please do not necessarily be realistic either. Be like, wow, wouldn't that be amazing if I was able to do that?
Have it take you around the world if that's something that you were dreaming of. It's something that we were dreaming of one time, and now it's reality. So it's a possibility, and that's what this is all about.
It's quite an idea.
Right, yes. Mm-hmm. You can see anything. You can perform anywhere. You can teach anyone.
And you don't have to get to the Cirque du Soleil level. And you don't have to be a street performer, though you could go for that. Catherine and I are going for a Cirque du Soleil type level, where you're really just,
We've also jammed with street performers and done collaborations. So
yeah, exactly. You will probably do a bunch of
Be
stuff.
Diverse and detailed.
And you can write out in bullet points. You can write out in paragraphs. You can write out like a story or bland specifics. Just get as many details as you can.
Who's hiring you?
Mm-hmm. Okay, another minute or so. Okay, go ahead and finish up what you're writing. Okay, so you had an image in your mind and now it's on paper. You know yourself to have a certain amount of skills. So in actuality, you've just taken your first big step into materializing this as a reality, because it's out of your head and now on paper. And you know yourself to be of certain level. You're investing in your skills. You're investing in this workshop. So you're already, the way that I see it, over halfway there. In fact, you are there. You just need both feet in it. And that's going to be a big part of your practice, is you need to keep going over this, what you've written in your head, many, many times, because you're going to come up with doubts. You're going to come up with obstacles that is going to get you to question yourself. And it's those pivotal moments that you need to come at it and either just simply stop yourself from thinking those thoughts, if not stopping those thoughts and instead taking a step in a different direction. If you feel doubt in one way, you stop yourself in that doubt and you take a step in the other way or in a different direction. So you're doing two things in that point. You are knowingly not investing in what you don't want to become real, and you are investing to what you do want to become real. So we started this in very clearly. We put a lot of energy into this first section at the Animus. event, but I'm going to go over it again. Your first and most important thing is persistence. And the first and most fundamental thing that you're going to keep taking steps is rethinking thoughts. If you can keep rethinking thoughts and keep the visualization of who you're becoming in mind, it will be an inevitable outcome. Honestly, you could leave here today right with that little bit of information if you really believed it, and have that be it, and let the universe figure it out for you. Because it really is that simple, but it's not that easy. That being said, the second you know that you've committed to this, which maybe you won't know for months or for years, because there's going to be a lot of obstacles to test. Are you really committed to this? Are you really in it for the long haul? But once you know that you're committed, it goes from being hard to being just manageably challenging, I call it. Catherine and I work in 2 levels. Things aren't easy, they're relatively easy, and things aren't hard, they're manageably challenging. So we've trained our minds to focus on those 2 aspects. Because the second you start labeling it as hard, it becomes harder. Because you've defined it that way, and now you're looking for it to be hard.
There's internal resistance as well.
Exactly.
Associated with things that are difficult.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. We're breaking down that internal resistance. It's okay for us to have poor thoughts. It's okay for us to be critical of ourselves. Just as long as you're not damaging yourself or ridiculing yourself or putting yourself down, it's okay I call it inverse modesty. It's okay to be really ridiculously proud of yourself and to love yourself and to just think you're the best. Other people who don't see themselves that way, if it comes out in some sort of way, they're going to think you're cocky, or they're going to think that you're not modest or overconfident or something like that. But that's their business. There's an expression that said, what other people think of you is none of your business.
I would say that if you have a pattern of projecting like a poor self-image of yourself, then that's not really going to help developing as like the professional self that you've written down in your journals. It's important to kind of recognize when there's a pattern of projecting yourself poorly and start to shift that though. So like I think that what you're saying is like negative thoughts are constructive if they're applied in a certain way.
Yeah.
But if they're like patternistic and just bringing you down, then it's not.
Recognize the fine line between constructive criticism and ridicule. There's a fine line between those 2 things. Are you being too hard on yourself, or are you being just the right amount of hard on yourself? Because there's going to be stress. There's no avoiding that stress. But what matters is it a constructive stress? Are you applying the pressure to yourself to take a step in the right direction, even if that's just not taking a step at all? So you're here today, and I went over this with Herman. Herman had a friend's birthday party today. I don't know if it got canceled or anything, but we were talking about it in there, and I said, well, then here's your first lesson. You're going to have to pressure yourself to not do the easy thing and go to the party, but instead do the challenging thing and show up for class, show up for practice. And the reason why I am not charging you guys very much for this, because almost most of you asked me, so is it $900 for one or $900 for the whole thing? Because Catherine and I did originally plan on charging $3,000 for this course, which is reasonable. But the reason why I didn't charge that was, first of all, because I got a message from within that was the price. So I didn't really decide it. I can say, my heart, mind, my intuitive connection with the universe and creator decided it. But the reason why for that price was to get more of you to show up. Because it's something, it's sizable, it's a chunk, it's a gas tank full, but also it's not so much. And I think that all of you can be like, well, Jesse's been taking this for many years and he made it lucrative to the point of getting all the way here from the United States. It must be worth something. So it's not too much. But also, more importantly, you guys are soon enough going to be providing value to each other. To me too. We're going to create like a group. You've already, Patrick has already provided this marketing kind of template for your business, which is, I didn't hear about, but is a really great way of something I've learned, but condenses it all down.
I'll be willing and able to, if anyone wants to, like show them how to do a business model. So
maybe we can make that a part of the thing, because also, if you guys have some time, we're going to take some time after the class and just not jam together, but start to transition your idea of jamming to practicing. Just the same as turning things from play to work, you kind of want to ride that line between flow jams and practice. Because practice can be serious and should be, and jams are under serious and should be. So one is just for fun, though you will grow from it, and one is for work, though you will have fun in it. And we're going to do our best to ride that line. So after these classes, every time we're going to do a practice jam if you want, or continue it into maybe something else like that. And that being the point, it's a smaller investment, but the way that I see it is I'm getting the investment of your guys' expertise and friendship, and knowing that more professionals in flow arts are growing around the world is going to help all of us out in business. Because right now, there's not too many people who are doing this stuff like it's a legitimate part-time or full-time job. You either have to take it to the ultimate level and train your ass off and be the best of the best, and just be recognized for that, or you're going to have to kind of scrounge, and Catherine and I have definitely had to scrounge, but I'm putting all of this together so that you guys don't maybe have to scrounge quite so much, or feel a little more confident that you are worth it, that these practices are worth it, and you're able to charge what you need to do to keep growing, to keep giving yourself more and more confidence that I can do this as much as I want and get the payouts as much as I want, to possibly take yourself and get paid all the way to that Cirque du Soleil level. A lot of people think, no, I have to pay for it in order to get the training to get up that. Or at the very least, I can't get paid and I just have to put in the time. What about getting paid to train? A big reason why I started doing this, and it started with yoga and then went into flow arts, was I wanted to get paid to train, because it helped sustain me and keep me going, and also create leverage on myself. If people are going to pay me to show up for this, then I got to show up a little bit better every single time. So you guys also hold me accountable to be at my best by showing up and doing this. So this, to me, we're going through it in real time. So the stuff we're covering, believe it or not, you're already doing it by showing up here and investing in yourself. But may this be the last time you ever have to invest in 900 Rand or anything. Next time you'll be getting paid for it, because you'll be able to take these stuff and branch it off on your own. This could be an aspect of your business, teaching the stuff that I'm telling you. So before I go on, I can talk a lot and share a lot of information. Please take some time, write notes down. The stuff that I'm telling you may not be as sticky in your mind tomorrow. Think about something. What have I just told you that you want to remind yourself tomorrow, or a week from now, or a month from now? What did I just say that stood out to you?
I have a question. When you said you're already manifesting the future, it's also a practice of being gratitude for the future that you will have. Mm-hmm. Is that one of the things that you use for manifestation?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. The way that I see it, if you're going to live a long, full, healthy, and successful life, you need 3 primary ingredients. You need faith. I'll say 4 now. Faith, humility, gratitude, and forgiveness. Faith is simply trusting in something bigger than yourself. I'm not saying you have to be religious or spiritual. You just need to recognize you're not alone in this. It's not your ego versus the world. It's not your separate human body against the whole rest of the universe and everybody and everything. That's not it. Though it might take you some practice, and that's not the topic of the thing, to be able to cultivate faith. That's each individual journey, and it's something else that I do, but it's not going to be focused on this. Though hopefully by the end of it, I trust you'll have a little bit more faith that this is a possibility for you. And gratitude is so that you keep focusing on what you already have, and which will help you pull more resources and more things to be grateful for. Forgiveness is learning about how to not worry about the mistakes that you've made. We're all very young and inexperienced in this. Forgiveness is not excusing yourself or others of mistakes made, but is at least giving you space to be more understanding. And then the humility is, that's the pressure. That's the pressure that's going in the right direction. Physically, mentally, emotionally, if you're applying pressure to yourself that's going to a desired end result, I call that humility, and it's kind of the cost for being alive. Like, you have to pressure yourself into taking care of yourself and taking care of others. Okay? Go ahead and take a moment, just write a few notes down while I review mine.
this one point which you made a bit earlier, and I think it's what you said. If you take one thing away from today, it could be that. And I'm trying to remember how you worded it now.
Was about persistence.
Yeah, that persistence, consistency is the thing, and the fundamental thing that you're going to be persistent on is keep remembering what you wrote down.
Yeah.
Keep remembering that person that you're becoming.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is keep thinking about him.
Holding that vision.
Yeah, keep that visualization in mind. And better, I like to say, when you're starting off, at least quarterly, every 3 months, take a good 30 minutes to 2 hours and write it out. I have another worksheet I can give you guys called Future Observations. We did a much more shorter version of it with just focusing on your flow arts career. But Catherine and I developed a worksheet that you take 2 hours to fill out every 3 months. Everything you want to have, everything you want to do, everything that you want, every relationship, how your relationships are in your life, from you with yourself, you with your family, you with your friends, you with your pets, plants, animals, the universe, all of your relationships, and then you as a person. Those 4 sections written out, and then you go over them daily, and then you refine them every 3 months so that you keep cycling through and refining your thought seeds. Every single thought you have is planted. And so if you're able to really masterfully keep planting the same thoughts in your mind, consciousness singles out the things that are going to serve that reality. Because they've been, obviously, we all, I think, know at this point, they've done enough testing, that the brain doesn't understand the difference between something vividly pictured in the mind and something actually happening in reality. And what you can recognize that leads up to is if you keep thinking a thought, your body develops a restlessness where it can't help but move into action, and eventually you get that thing done because you keep picturing it. And if the reality that you're experiencing isn't matching with that picture in your head, eventually the body will spring into action. Inevitably it will. That's why I said, fundamentally what you want to do is think.
So would it also be a way of writing down things, and then also having not the confidence but the evidence that you've been going on the right track?
Right.
So that you can go and say, I can be more confident in my flow skills, but I can also look at what the persistencies that I did, and then backtrack and say, okay, I have built up in these journalings, I have now the evidence that I gained from all these write downs.
Definitely. Yeah. And that's going to be the second thing that's most important about your online portfolio, i.e. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whatever sort of social media or website that you want to do. It's not just for your audience, it's for you. It's not just your portfolio, it's your photo album. It's you growing up in this sort of way and seeing the evolution of it, and you can kind of pick up on patterns, and you can have faith in yourself because boom, it's right there. You've done it. And I'm sure if you did that with everything that you've already been through in life up until this point, you could cultivate some of a similar thing just in reinvesting in yourself and looking back on yourself with hopefully a sense of fondness. A lot of people look back and they're so embarrassed about themselves and where they were. Not a good reaction. It's of course, if we were to look back as babies, ourselves as babies, are oh my God, I'm shitting myself and stuff like that, but you don't, right? Because you're everybody does that. Well, why at a certain point do we as adults look back at our young adult selves or whatever and be I was shitting my pants in whatever way? That's, we think about it as embarrassing rather than that was a necessary step I had to take in order to evolve or grow into who I become now. Start thinking like that rather than, that's the difference between being constructively critical and ridiculing yourself. The ridiculer is ashamed of who they once were, and the constructive criticism is I went through that. I must have had to go through that. I'm ever happier with where I am now, so that must have had a reason, that led up to this. But yes, of course, we're going to be refining our portfolio so you have better and better images of yourself to look back upon. And we will be teaching you guys about content creation, about social media, I think next week, not this week. But we'll have you bring if you have any camera equipment, even if it's just your phone or a tripod, I'll send you home with some homework. Okay, so getting into the specifics as far as how much steps, you don't actually need that much time. everybody here probably has a different job besides flow arts that takes up a lot of their time. And the hardest thing that you're going to have to do, and I just taught a couple people this, and it was definitely their hardest step, is you need to start stepping away from your day job. You need to start finding ways of not doing the things you don't want to do. Working for someone else, making ends meet just to pay the bills, essentially not having faith in yourself in this position. And if you can't, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to wake up 15 to 30 minutes earlier, stay up 15 to 30 minutes later, and take another step in your flow arts career. We're going to define here in a moment what a number of different steps are that you can take in order to invest just a little bit more. And as soon as you can, take a leap or start talking to people about you doing this as a career to start getting other minds focusing on that you are looking to get paid to do this. So eventually you get your first gig, someone gives you that first little bit of money, and then you're going to do your best to replicate that and hold to a sense of value so that people start paying you, so that you start to get the confidence, okay, I'm going to take the day off, or I'm going to clock out an hour early because I know that what I'm doing for myself is also going to be lucrative. So I'm not losing money by not getting paid at my day job. I'm just investing time and energy to make money in what I'm going to do. It took me 5 years to go from working from someone else all the way to not working for someone else and working solely for myself for Full Circle Phenomenal. And I have never worked for someone else ever again. I've worked with someone else, but the Full Circle Phenomenal name is right there alongside their name. So we're working with each other rather than, no, I'm working for this person. Full Circle Phenomenal is not going to be repped. It's Jesse working for this person. No, that doesn't happen anymore. It took me 5 years to slowly wean off working for someone else to working for myself. And I think that's a reasonable amount of time. It's a fairly short amount of time. But hopefully with all of these things, you'll be able to shorten that down a little bit or a lot of it. That being said, it's a combination of how many leaps of faith are you willing to take? Because if you're working a 9 to 5 and 40 hours a week, if you are really determined and really studious and really set on it, imagine what you could do with 40 hours in a week. I almost guarantee, even though I don't necessarily recommend that you do this, that anybody could quit their day job today and pull it off. That being said, you're going to go through a lot of stress really fast. But if when you're ready to take that leap, you take it. It doesn't matter if it's today or a year from now or 5 years from now.
Ideally not at the start of winter.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly.
See, for me, like this, your guys' winter, you guys are all so cold, and I'm like, this feels like spring to me.
Well, today isn't cold, but
Right.
the work dries up a lot during winter.
Yeah.
Yes.
And well, you guys are in a completely different setting. South Africa is different than Northwest U.S. But that being said, it's still possible. Because something that I'm studying everywhere around the world is that if you hold to a standard, the universe will deliver you that standard wherever you are in the world. I don't care how well off it is or how poor it is. There are people there with money that will find your value. You will attract it to them. Quit thinking by what the media and what your society has taught you. The world, say what you will, but the way I see it is the United States and South Africa, they're illusions. They're not actually real. We play like they're real, and they are real, but they're not actually real anymore.
Imagined.
They're more imagined, yeah, exactly. And they're echoes of a past of when mankind used to try and dominate each other for space. But now it's all corporatism, and it's all tied up in the books and stuff like that. And I'm sure you guys know with all the load shedding and stuff like that, there's bullshit going on. So very much we're simultaneously all on our own, while at the same time we're all one. We're all together in on this. And you will find the resources that you need in order to keep going wherever you are in the world, as long as you can just pluck those little thought weeds out of your head that no, this isn't realistic for me, that's not possible in this country, that's not possible for me as a this or that or the other. That's illusion stuff, and it becomes real if you really believe in it, because your consciousness is going to find reasons to affirm that reality. But if you can just realize, I don't want to believe this, I don't want this to be true, I'm going to do my best to push it out of my mind and focus instead on something else. What would I like to be true instead? Because believe it or not, like Catherine, look at our truck. We don't have a lot of money. I literally have, what you guys have given me is all the money I have right now. I have $50 in the bank. But I've run out of money so many times on this trip that it's not a leap of faith anymore, and it doesn't stress me out anymore. It used to a lot, and a lot of us get stressed out because of money, but money is a massive inhibitor. And so don't worry about money, even though, yes, of course, be smart. Don't be stupid. But the money, the resources will be there, especially once you have committed to this, when you keep investing in it. So on that note, the minimum that you're going to need, and I don't know this isn't like set in stone, but I've studied a lot. And I don't believe that you have to do this every single day for multiple hours in a day. Some people treat this like really heavy, and yes, they achieve like a certain great state, but at what cost to their health? You don't necessarily have to do this every single day, but you do need to find a pattern out of taking steps in your flow arts career. And I find that the minimum that is 4 to 5 days a week, which means you can take 1 or 2 days off, but you cannot take off more than 2 days or more than 3 days in a week, because what that's doing is creating a pattern of taking days off and not practicing or not taking steps. So it's really creating a pattern of doing what you're going to do or creating a pattern of not doing it. It's as simple as that. In that 4 to 5 days a week, I recommend an absolute minimum of 15 to 30 minutes. That's an absolute minimum.
I thought it was going to be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
That's the minimum.
It's an absolute, like I said, it's just enough to sustain. It's not enough to grow. It's enough to sustain where you're at. Yeah. So at a certain point, like at the beginning of this, I highly recommend that you do 5 to 6 days a week for a minimum of 1.5 to 2 hours when you're getting started. If you have manifested any of circumstances where you don't have to pay rent or a certain amount of bills, it is not a free ride. When I was starting to get into Full Circle Phenomenal, I manifested a relationship. I was putting the place that I was living at up on Airbnb to pay for rent while mostly staying at her house. And we would train together. And I essentially became kind of the house husband, where she was going to work and paying the bills. And I got the opportunity to cook and clean and put time and energy into Full Circle Phenomenal. And that's how it was born. So I didn't treat it as like a free ride, even though I wasn't paying rent. I was making sure everything was, I was being the house husband. I was taking care of all the stuff at home. And at the same time, that wasn't taking up 8 hours a day. So the rest of the time, I was training or putting some sort of energy into Full Circle Phenomenal. Because I was like, I'm gonna make the most out of this. I saw that as an opportunity that I manifested. And without that, I would not be here today, So yeah, when you're getting started out, put in as much time as possible if you possibly can, but bare minimum 4 to 5 days a week, 15 to 30 minutes a day to sustain things. Okay, so any questions on that? What I think we're ready for now is, what are you going to do for that 15 minutes to 2 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week that you could do today? Write out preferably stuff that you're looking forward to. Try not to write down steps that you're like, I'm going to hate that. Because you don't want to develop a poor neural association towards it. Don't let your realistic thinking get in the way of your creative mindset. You could just as easily manifest someone to do some of the things for you or with you that you don't want to do. You don't want to do the books, maybe you'll manifest an accountant friend, things like that. So let's write down somewhere between 5 and 10 things, small things, that you could do today besides this. And this could count as one. This is a big step. You could just say, I attended Go Pro with Your Flow. That is definitely a step, a big step.
So we're writing steps towards our career type thing.
What is 5 to 10 baby steps that you could take today that would put you from where you are now closer to what you wrote down at the beginning of class, to that pinnacle professional flow artist that you're aiming for? And let it be an enjoyable step. It might not be enjoyable. I'm giving you 5 to 10 so that you can pick and choose. The more that you can get your mind on multiple different steps, you can pick and choose. You don't always have to necessarily do something that you don't want to do when you don't feel like doing it. But just wait until you feel the inspiration to do it. And in the meantime, do something else that inspires you and that keeps you growing. Yeah. It's kind of funny, just while you guys are writing this down, we're in the energy of it. So one of the most professional amongst us, Duncan, just texted all the Animus facilitators just now, thanking everybody, acknowledging that he's not alone in this and he needs to remember to reach out to the people who helped make this event a success and say thank you. That's a step. Acknowledging the people who got you to where you are right now. Because those people, if someone was a resource once, likely they'll be a resource again if you called upon them. So good to keep acknowledging the people that got you to where you are today. That is definitely a step. And just take another minute and then we'll move on. Remember, he doesn't like to be pressed on.
Oh, right, I remember. Gentle pets.
Okay, now everyone take out your smartphone.
Mine's in the bag.
Okay, go ahead and go grab it.
Okay.
We're taking digital notes here too. Hi, honey. Hi, baby. I sit at the table with everyone. What are we doing?
That's cool that Duncan texted. Right?
Yeah, right when that happened. Yeah. Yeah, that's the fun. We're not gonna watch YouTube Kids right now.
I'm so grateful.
Oh, those are epic.
These are so awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a bit of a pull to try and get everything to align for Animus. So in my honest opinion, it's not my best work.
These particular ones, or did you make a bunch that are basically the same?
I made a whole bunch of these that are the same.
Okay.
because I have a different process for building my torches, which is a much longer process, and I wasn't at that point where I could manifest them in that time.
Yeah.
So I tried a different technique and learning experiences and that sort of thing along the way.
Awesome. These are the best quality ones I've
I must say,
Very excited.
Halen, I really do love those. Like, Halen made my first
Yeah.
fire torches
Yeah.
ever.
Anna, do you want to
And
see these?
These
Yeah,
are
honey.
amazing as well.
Check these
Like, I like
out.
the
Wow.
elastic. It's a quick slide.
Yeah. You like
Here,
these
look
ones?
at this.
I like that it's
I like the
Slides on very
it's
easily.
very because with multiple use,
Yeah.
my like the leather starts to fold and things like that. So it's
Okay.
it's beautiful.
All right, you guys, on your smartphones,
Yeah.
go to your calendar.
Really hard to fit them, but
What is the?
it's a spray paint that I used.
What
It's
is
just-
time?
it's just like this stuff.
First,
You do it in Outlook or something?
yeah.
Calendar.
There's usually a calendar. No?
Google Calendar.
We use an Android phone.
Agenda, yeah.
So just go to where there's all the
So
Google things. There should be a
There's
Google.
I have an agenda
ones
here.
on the sides you're holding the
Yeah,
elastic on.
there. That's.
They're rivets, and then that one is you stick in the elastic. But they're keeping the leather together. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh. It's interesting. It just updates my flights and stuff. Never saw that.
And here's another lesson in real time. So this is Halen's payment. We
will
decided to exchange
do
for
that.
these instead of the payment.
Mm.
Yeah. And so as long as it's an investment like money, goods, services, if it's going towards what you want to continue to grow, it's relatively the same. If anything, it's actually, I find a lot of times when you can exchange for goods or services, it's often worth more than the financialness. And you just invest in each other's business. And so it creates like more of a bond too. Than, yeah, it feels good too. Yeah, exactly.
I see.
Okay, so on your phone calendars, what I want you to do is pick a time and write down these steps as a reminder to yourself. Write down these steps that you're going to do, and you're going to have this alert come up, and you're going to have it repeat every single day. Preferably when you feel like you could actually take a step. So either in the morning, early afternoon, later afternoon, whenever you feel you may likely have that 15, 30 minutes or more of time when you can start taking some steps. Write down for that time all of the different steps that you just wrote down. Give yourself some options and put an alarm on it that will remind you at that time every single day. Have it recur daily. And you might end up doing it at that time. You might end up doing it another time. But what matters, as I was saying, with your future observation of who you're becoming, you need to remind yourself of what are some of the steps that you can take every single day. So your mind keeps on recycling and thinking about those steps. And you will find the time to do them. Cool.
His glasses right at the back. And then there's water next to the coffee machine.
Yeah.
Could give you feedback if you wish.
Yeah, sure. It's not the design that I currently function with. It's something I came up with on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is also like people that do like with gondolas and like having if you fall that you have like with a way that it doesn't like hamper. So you have like but I'll later.
And so go ahead and finish up on your phones. So literally look at my calendar, you guys.
Wow.
I've been doing this for 11 years nonstop.
So is that an Outlook or is this?
This is just the Google, not the Google Calendar, but the Apple Calendar that came with this.
Yeah.
And I deleted a bunch of them to make space for this one so I could clearly see on it because it gets flooded with things. But I also use that as an opportunity to go through them again. So every single thing in my life that I'm looking to take steps in and perfect, I'm writing out a little something that I learned, and I want to keep relearning, keep remembering to take steps in that direction, if only to just think about it again. You know, inevitably, what I notice after 10 years of doing this, it inevitably gets done. Some things take a little longer, some things go pretty quickly and you get it faster, and then you delete it or replace it with something else. But my claim to doing this as a profession, my claim to fame to it is reminding myself through calendar alerts every single day. And sometimes it gets even a little annoying because I'm always like doing that thing again. But I get these reminders from myself, and through planting that thought seed over and over again, I inevitably end up taking the steps that gets it mastered. And then I move on to something else. Okay? So that's it for the first part of the first section of taking steps forward. So now the next thing we're going to talk about is not taking steps back. So this is arguably harder because it's the side that a lot of people don't realize is there. We all focus in business about growth, but we don't often think about not decay. There's two sides. You're either growing or you're shrinking. But it's not one or the other, it's actually both. It's growing and not shrinking. So the first thing you have to be honest with yourself, because you know you have habits in life. that don't serve you and don't serve your career. And you need to learn how to let go of those habits, let go of those patterns, shift things that you know are true about yourself that you need to stop blaming on outside sources or outside things. Common example is, smoking cigarettes. Like, people know that they want to stop smoking, but they don't stop hanging around all the people who smoke, which makes it really hard. So if you want to stop smoking, you'd have to stop hanging around people who smoke at every break, A person who wants to stop drinking, likewise, has to stop going to those parties where they know everybody is going to be drinking at. So one thing that was the one that's most relative, that goes closest to home, that is a lot of the time the hardest, is you have to stop going to flow jams and instead setting up your own practice times. I'm not saying that you never can go to flow jams ever again, but at a certain point you need to come into the flow jams with an idea in mind of what are you going to gain or grow in that day? What are you going to talk to people about? Because if you're just there to shoot the shit, smoke weed and whatever, flow out, that's fine, but it's not going to grow you as a professional. I've had to make frenemies, for lack of a better word, and I don't recommend that it happens. I hope it doesn't happen to you, but yeah, I've made a number of frenemies with a bunch of flow artists who would rather, dick around and do their own thing and say that that's right. And I'm saying, no, I'm not, it's not right. It's not where I want to go. So I'm direct, but on one side of being direct with what it is you want in life, to another person is being pushy or being demanding or being a jerk. Once again, it's not my business what they think of me, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good when and this is the hardest part, because flow arts as a profession, like even when I started breaking into it, I had people who are very good at what they do. Some of my earliest teachers was like, that's bullshit. You shouldn't do that. Like, flat out, you should not make money doing flow arts. Like, it's sacrilegious or something to them. Seriously. And I'm like, I see what you're saying. I'm not gonna be a sellout. I'm gonna do my best to be an ethical business type person as it relates to flow arts. But in order to keep going with this and to stop working for someone else, because they all work for somebody else, right? So they're giving me advice on something, even though what really standpoint do they have to give me advice on? And I don't have poor feelings towards them, but I had to distance myself from the people who didn't believe in the stuff that I believed in, which is I believe that flow arts should be something that should be more highly regarded as something that a professional does, that a person who's very healthy in their body and their mind and their professional aspects, because this sort of stuff, if you really get into it, it's just so good for the world. It's so good for you. And I think that's why it's starting. We're seeing a big rise in it. And so, but this is kind of the transitionary point of doing it for money and not doing it for money. And it's a tough line to cross, and it's a tough line to stay on one side and keep staying on that side. It's pretty easy to do it for fun and not worry about money, because it doesn't require the pressure of you asking for money or for you to put yourself in a way over people. It's not that you are better than someone else, but you are putting yourself at a degree of this practice that is harder than just doing it for fun.
Quick question. So most of the times when I go to the jam, we host one in Amsterdam, and I would always be very happy to teach other people. Mm-hmm. So what I do in a jam is almost 100% teaching other people. Mm-hmm. But I don't get any practice out of it myself, and I don't ask other people for hey, can you teach me something? Mm-hmm. So how would you regulate that energy exchange in a better way? Because on one side I want to be very friendly, I'm a very nice guy. If I see someone that wants to do the 3-beat weave or whipping or whatever, I will be more than happy to share all my energy. And
that's awesome. And I really appreciate that. If you've ever heard the expression, nice guys finish last, mm-hmm. I don't necessarily completely believe in that expression, but there's definitely something to be reckoned with as it relates to becoming a professional. The short answer to your question is just tell the truth. Say, I'm working towards creating this more of my profession now. And Usually I would charge for something like this. I want to teach you, I want you to grow, but what about doing some sort of exchange together?
Yeah.
And then you open it up. Maybe they have money, maybe they have a different service or time to do something else. I often do time for time, you know, or my skill for your skill, right? Service for service. But you have to just kind of interrupt. It's kind of like having consent, you know, like before we go into this engagement, like I want you to know what my intentions are as it relates to it, because what I am doing is this. As soon as it's planted in someone's mind, yes, you will have to face the humility of someone being like, no thanks. Because they're going to jump in their head, oh, he wants money, or he's, you know, he's being whatever plays out in their head that might not be actually true, but is true to them, and it's going to make them push themselves away. This is what I'm talking about, the harder step. Not taking steps back, being willing to go through that negative energy. And by negative, I don't mean bad, I mean repelling. Positive energy attracts, negative energy repels. Both are actually important.
Because that's one of the things with friends. I don't want to mix friends and business. Yeah. And the flow community is very, very small. Yeah. So you eventually have to like cross those paths. But like if I'm reiterating, basically you want to make upfront clear and precise that you want to have perhaps an energy exchange. Might be donations or like barter or...
Not might.
Is.
No. Yeah.
You need an energy.
100. Everybody write this down. The difference between 0% and 99.9% is nothing compared to 100%.
Okay.
There is no maybe. And as much as because I know the nice guy in you wants to be flexible, but you're going to have to learn about what is the difference between being flexible and giving an inch. Because as I say, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Yeah. And the more broader range of that's not a victim perpetrator is going to say is if you're making a pattern out of something, you're making a pattern out of something. If you give an inch, you might as well give a mile. So you have to be flexible. Like with Halen wasn't know whether or not he wanted to invest in this thing. I was like, well, you have palm torches. Catherine needs palm torches. What about that? So we're being flexible with each other. But if I was like, oh, if you come, you can just come at a discounted rate, because then I have to give you all a discount rate or something like that, because I feel like desperate to get them to come, rather than just being like, well, maybe there's another way, you know? And it's not saying that if Halen was like, no, I don't want to do it, then I'm like, well, then fuck you then. And he's like, well, fuck you then. It's not. But it does come up. It may come up.
So it's like you need to be more assertive with your boundaries and stick to them too.
Yeah. There's a skill that I all recommend you study, which I call being politely stern. Yeah. Politely stern. You don't have to be a dick about it, but you need to be stern about where your priorities are, and you need to have the courage to express them to as many people as possible, because it is going to create a divide for you. It's going to create the people who want to invest in you on one side and the people who don't want to invest in you on the other side, and that's a very important divide to happen, even if it might be a little painful. And that's the only way Catherine and I are able to do what we do, by the way. We do have very, very few friends as just friends now. Most of our friends are our clients and our students and the people that we work with. Yeah.
I think it's sort of on that point. It feels like making these very clear decisions. It's, for me so far, has been a very lonely road, because, for example, if you're taking out certain things, like Cape Town has a massive drinking culture, so I've stopped now. And I've lost friends, like loads, because you can't. There's nowhere that your brains are in the same environment. Yeah. So you have each other, right, with you all the time. So there's that.
Before Catherine, I was doing this mostly on my own. I mean, I had a few people around me, but I had to struggle and, in some ways, get myself to be lonely, to separate my energy, because you have to acknowledge. And I'm getting more into the deeper spiritual yoga aspects about this. Everything is a reflection of you. So if you're not content with this reflection of the environment and the reality you're in, you have to push yourself out of that environment sometimes, or crawl out of it sometimes. And it is a lonely road, but it's because it's so valuable, and it teaches you such humility of what it takes to live your dreams. Because the way that I taught, I just taught someone for 6 months. Someone invested in a 6-month course to become a professional flow artist and a professional yoga teacher. And most of that ended up going around the fact, like, look, you're going to have to just say goodbye. You're going to have to learn about the hardest lesson of love, which is being willing to let go.
Yeah.
And if you have to, push away, get away from those toxic energies. Because the way that I see it is, if we're all energy bodies, you have to look and ask yourself one question: is this person living their dreams? And that's what's very hard, is not a lot of people are.
Yeah.
But the more of us are and do, the more you'll begin to attract more of that. It's another reason why I charge less. I wanted more of you to be here, because honestly, this sort of thing is very rare. A small but sizable group of people who want to be professional flow artists getting together for this. I've very seldomly, like outside of a festival, like my first time doing this was in a festival with the person who's in charge of Kindle, previously Pacific Fire Gathering, one of the biggest flow arts festivals in the U.S. Definitely my favorite festival. I learned from her, and so now I'm taking what she taught me back in 2014 or 15 and going into the nth degree with it, because once again it was like a 1-hour workshop. It wasn't like enough, but it was enough to get me started.
Sorry, I just wanted to add as well, to your point, if they're really your friends, they'll support you.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like you want to bring your friends up. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've now taught a lot of workshops, and they were free workshops, but still it's an hour's drive, and my friends came through to attend my class. They want to see you succeed. So, the skill and time that you've put in, that's your time, that's your energy that you put in. So there's nothing, a lot of yogis have this resistance as well, like money is evil.
Yeah.
So for them it's like very gross and stuff, but
Yeah.
I've even had to tell other yoga teachers it's an energy exchange. Just see
Yeah.
it as that. It's nothing more than that. It's your time for other people's time. How do they get
Yes.
compensation for their time? They get money.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you are deserving of receiving that as well for your time.
Yeah, and I'll buy a mace or buy some like.
Catherine,
would
would you grab
buy
me a
different ways.
sweatshirt?
Yeah.
But it's also like
Oh, really?
the same thing about considering class as a profession rather than just it's like changing the mindset to like, I don't deserve to be paid because
Yeah.
and it's like, hell yeah, I deserve stacks.
Yeah, you need to express it enough to where you start talking about it proudly.
Yeah.
Because that's what I mean by the 100%. If you say, maybe if you wouldn't mind, no, that's showing that you're willing to probably give an inch and amount because you're not certain that you want to do it. And that's really the hardest part, is you, like I said, as soon as you develop certainty that this is what you're going to do, it will move from hard to manageably challenging. That being said, the humility that you'll experience in that energy shift of pushing away what's not going to serve this and to make space to attract towards you what will, that's really the hardest part. And that's really the only part of my flow arts career that sucked. But now it's more or less over, and I don't experience it anymore. And I'm making friends still, but now it's friends that are taking this to the direction that I'm taking it, and that feels much better, honestly. Also, you're gonna find too that you're gonna befriend people that you can rely on, because they're gonna be investing in themselves and their health too. Where instead of watching your friends go down the shitter, wasting their time with drinking and doing other unserving habits and stuff like that. So it's really a no-brainer once you get out of it. But when you're in it, moving out of it, it's tough. Yeah. You're like, of course.
But that's encouraging, thank you very much.
Yeah, but you can start by, don't focus on people outside of yourself. Focus on yourself. What's one thing that you cannot take a step into? One thought you can stop having about yourself and interrupt. One habit that you could do just a little bit less every single day. And it's a step forward by not taking a step back. And it's equally valuable. Once you start to master these two things, you start taking 200% leaps into your career, and it will start compounding interest and growing exponentially, and you'll start noticing a shift real fast, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So trying to be, instead of nice guy, like a kind guy.
Yeah, and not, yeah, as they say, don't mistake my kindness for weakness kind of guy. Yeah.
If you take yourself seriously, people will as well.
Mm-hmm.
But not too serious, guys.
Well, I've replaced the word serious with sincere.
Sincere.
I'm sincere.
It's also a respect thing. Like,
Yeah.
if you respect yourself, other people will respect you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, it's a reflection of what's inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And there's the expression, I'll end this with, those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. Yeah. I don't know who said that, but it stuck with me. Okay, we did a warm-up today that's also, that is a simultaneous, not taking a step back and taking a step forward. Growing your meditation practice, doing it regularly. So the way that I teach my yoga students is, I'm going to teach you how to cultivate this feeling every single time in an hour. After a certain amount of practice, you'll be able to get the same feeling in 30 minutes. And you keep practicing, you'll be able to get it in 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. Instantaneous. Eventually, you need to start growing some form of meditation practice that you go to readily every single day or regularly, so that you start to learn about what's happening inside, so that you can decrease that shorter and shorter amount of time. Eventually, you'll be able to hold a very stressful situation with confidence and calm. And that's where you want to get to up as a professional, is you're going to be able to deal with challenging situations calmly, because you can neutralize what's happening inside of you in real time. And that is an ultimate skill, not just for professional flow arts, but everything in life. If you can continue to remain calm and breathe and focus internally while something outside of you is starting to fall apart or get chaotic, you need to find out what meditation works for you. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be yoga or qigong or seated meditation. It can be hiking or walking. Just as long as it's giving you time to move slow. It can be your flow arts, It can be your flow arts.
Yeah.
As long as you're learning to move slow, so that you're not just focusing on what you're doing, you're focusing on how you're feeling while you're doing it. You're focusing on your breath, on your body. You're able to focus on gratitudes and just be all right in that moment, and start to collect little things that you keep doing that eventually you'll always have with you. And that will be your go-to when you're faced with that opposition of, do I take a step into this thing, or do I pause and not take a step in any direction? Because that will be a confusing part of you, is sometimes during certain situations, since you're inexperienced, you won't know which way to step. And if you don't know, the answer is no. At least for that moment. I'm not saying it's not a potential yes or even a yes, but in that moment, if you can have the humility that if you're not sure what to do, instead neutralize and don't take a step for a second, and just breathe into it and give yourself time to consider. If someone's pushing you to make a choice, fuck that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Credit card now.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
Don't. If they don't give you a moment's time just to collect yourself, they're not worth your investment. Seriously. And please have the faith to turn down gigs even. I've had to turn down a small handful of gigs from people that I realized I did not want to work with, because they're doing their practices unhealthy and I couldn't practice. So that's another thing. There's people who aren't practicing at all, drinking and doing unhealthy practices, but recognize there's also professionals in the industry who are also having a lot of unhealthy habits. And if you're going to be performing fire, you need to watch out for these venues. These venues who are not doing their stuff legit. I have gotten really close to hurting someone because the security was so off in a place full of drinking and drugs, to the point where Catherine and I don't work those gigs anymore. Sorry, I don't really care how much money you're offering me. It's not worth first of all the safety of the people that are there, because of how horrible I would feel if I hurt somebody, or if someone walked into my safety area and got themselves burned or something, but also what that could potentially do for me as a professional. You could your whole career could be destroyed through one gig. So but typically the deciding factor on that is go meet with the person that you're going to work with, go see the venue, and don't be afraid to take a moment and trust your intuition, trust your feelings. If it feels quite possibly like there's some red flags for me here, have the courage to just say no and trust that where there's one, there's many. You let go of one gig or one door closes, another door or multiple doors and often enough open. But you have to take that little miniature leap of faith of saying, you know what, no thank you. And I've even pushed to the point where someone has already paid me and I show up to the gig and the security and the things and the stuff that they promised were not there, and I literally pulled the money right out of my pocket, put it right back in their hand and said, I'm not doing this. Sorry. Like this is not the setting that we agreed upon. Here's the money back. I'm not doing this, and do what you will. And they're usually really weird about it too, because it's like they can't function in their head. Wait, I gave you money and you're giving it back to me? Like you're not a sellout like I am? Like, nope, I'm not. I'm not going to endanger your people. You might, but I'm not going to endanger your people. Here's your money back. And I feel a lot better. It doesn't really happen. It's few and far between, I find, but it does happen. So just be aware that it's very, very important that you learn how to neutralize internally, so you can learn how to take the steps forward you want and not take the steps to the side or back or wherever that you don't want. And it becomes a skill. It's a flow art like anything else. I like to say everything is a flow art. Everything is a way of maneuvering something around or through your body. And your thoughts and feelings are the most subtle of all of those props that you're using. And so, yeah, the catch on that side is sometimes you're not going to be sure, but you're going to need to push it to get something done. So sometimes when you're going from a amateur level to professional level, there's going to be some things in between that are not going to make sense to your amateur level, and you're not going to know exactly where they're going to lead. But something's going to tell you to do it. Do it, and do it the best you possibly can, even if you make a fool out of yourself, even if this person is taking you for a ride and is going to rip you off. Still, show up, do your absolute best, and follow through with it. Be a better professional than this person is. Take the high road, do what doesn't make sense. It's hard for me to tell you when is to take which one of those choices. When is to let go of a gig that you should let go of, and when to commit to a gig that is going to be tough and it's going to cause you some humility. And maybe you're going to be out of pocket or something, but you at least know at the end of the day you did your best and you completed a gig. That's something hopefully you only have to do for a short amount of time, but it probably will definitely happen if it hasn't already happened to you already, where you feel like, damn, that wasn't fun, but I made it through, and I'm richer for the experience. Yeah. Another expression I made up is commit or eat shit. Once you've decided you're going to do something, do it. And if you decide that you have to commit in the opposite direction and quit, then commit in the opposite direction. Like I said, 0 to 99.9% is nothing in comparison to 100%. You're either 100% in or you're 100% out. And if you find yourself not sure balancing, make a choice. Commit or eat shit. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go on. We got a little bit more time here. Okay, perfectly. On that note, for the sake of yourself and other professionals, refuse to work for just drinks, tips, or exposure. We talked about this a little bit there. I'm not saying that it's a wrong choice to make, but in my study of the patterning universe, you don't want to put yourself into a pattern that you're not going to be able to sustain forever. So I made up another expression. If you don't want to do something forever, stop doing it now. Because what you're agreeing to doing in the short run, you may end up making a pattern and be actually agreeing to do it in the long run. So I find that working for tips or drinks, or worst of all, exposure, is not feasible, is not professional. Definitely amateur. I did it for a little while and then I had to fight to get out of it. That was really during that butting heads negative energy time, when I realized I had gotten myself into a pattern I didn't want to be in. I didn't respect myself or the people I was working with, and I eventually had to be like, no, I can't do this anymore. And then people take offense to that. So if you can help it, don't get into that in the first place, and don't work for tips, drinks. The only exception that I will really make, as I said, is if you know that the person could really help you to open up doors, if you know the person is really inspired by you, like you have some sort of connection, and at that point you're working more for the connection than you are for the tips, drinks, or exposure. You're working because this is an energy that I want to invest in. I want to invest in this sort of professional relationship with this person. And in some instances, since like food is a resource, Catherine and I have done a number of gigs where we did half in money and half in food because we worked for a restaurant. And it was a really nice restaurant, and we felt like doing it, and that's what they offered. So we're like, all right. Especially if it leads to repeat gigs, because being consistently paid by a person, that's a good investment. Even if you have to get paid less than you expect, but they're still giving you something else, that's still good momentum. And a big way I was able to get paid to train, Catherine and I created over 250 tutorials for the Sacred Flow Art YouTube channel. And we didn't get paid very much for them, but we got to say we're professional YouTubers, we're professional Instagrammers, we are professional bloggers. We didn't get paid very much, but we were getting paid. And I had to train to learn from both other professional YouTubers and flow artists and myself of how to make a better product. So I was learning I was getting paid to learn new tricks and to understand how I was going to teach those new tricks. So even though I wasn't getting paid a lot, and eventually I did quit, we did let that go, it helped us to get to the higher level of professional content creator and professional flow artists. Like big time, like the first year of the show. And he paid for this phone. He loaned me the money I needed for this phone to create content, which we paid back over the span of a year through content. And it's still with me to this day. So it's a very valuable asset. So and there's definitely some flex room there, but do your best to, and especially if someone's trying to convince you, watch out for people trying to convince you of stuff. If it doesn't feel right from the get-go, or if it doesn't feel like somewhere in here and someone's trying to like get you to go their way, that's working for someone and not with someone, right? Okay. Let's say we started a little bit late, and I do want to talk about that too, because this is something that's really interesting around the world. So in Latin America and in a lot of places, but especially all throughout Central and South America, 30 minutes late was early. Yeah. We're talking about on time is more or less an hour late. But there's obviously a lot of problems as it relates to professionality in Central and South America. But it's a way of life and culture. And I have a really kind of strange relationship with that, because where I come from is very capitalistic and very structured, professional, and punctual. But also it's high stress and the pursuit of happiness, and not necessarily having the happiness sometimes. So I had to kind of think about it. So typically I would say, as a rule of thumb, to friendly professional settings like this, 15 minutes late is all right. But any more than that, Halen, and you're late, you're just barely on time. But that's kind of the rule that I've created in my mind is, but if you're going to like a professional fire performance, anything less than an hour early is late to me. Like, because you need to show up, you need to make sure everything is kind of put together and make connections. It's better for you to be there and to take care of everything and still have 45 minutes to spare than for you to get there and rush and put everything together and have to perform under this high level of stress, because you're going to probably fuck up, under that pressure. You want to go into it relaxed. So it's going to vary in different circumstances, but for these circumstances, if you guys would all be sure to be here at least 15 minutes after the hour or earlier, preferably on time so we can start it on time. That would be respectful for everybody involved. Cool? Cool. On that note, too, we don't have to wear airs and graces in any way. You guys should be yourselves. I'm not asking of you that you need to perform in any particular way, and you shouldn't ask that of yourself either. So that relates to the aspect of stop trying to impress people. Stop trying to show off. Something that I've learned, especially with fire spinning, is when you start to show off, that's when either when you're overpressured or overstressed, or you're overpressuring yourself and stressing yourself out trying to show off, that's typically when you're going to screw up. If you can create a sixth sense for yourself and use your meditation to observe that what I'm saying is true, get yourself to try and stop showing off. And what's really interesting about that, I find, is when you perform well enough, you didn't impress yourself necessarily, but you got the job done. No one got hurt. Everything was on time. Everything flowed well enough. That's a pass. That's a big step up. It's better to take a small step up than try to take a huge step up but end up taking a huge step down. It's better to go gradually small steps up over time and just do what you know what you can, because it will grow. And you need to remember that all of your clients typically are people really inexperienced, so they don't have anything to compare to. That's one of the good things about being a professional flow artist, is not a lot of people have a lot to compare to yet. So you're going into them, and if your shit is organized and you get the stuff done and you do your routine and everything's set and dandy, people are like, wow. Like, because to them, it's a brand new experience. It's very unique. It stands out. But if you go into it trying to show off because you're used to being an audience to yourself or to other good flow artists, and you try to push it to a higher degree, but then you mess up, then you make a huge mistake and go down. So try to avoid that no matter what you have seen out there. And instead of being at your best for someone else, just be at your best for yourself. And instead of comparing yourself to other people, just compare yourself to who you were yesterday or a week ago or a month ago. And instead of comparing in like a ridiculing sense, just be proud of that next step up. Because there's an expression, as above, so below, as below, so above. You're always going to find that there's a bigger fish or someone better than you, and you're always going to find that there's a smaller fish or someone maybe not as good as you, no matter what level you get. And at first this seems really daunting because it feels like I will never be the best. I will never be at the best. I will never be the best. But that's okay, because what it means really is you always have something to grow. You always have something to reach for, to keep going towards, as long as you want. There's always going to be something more for you to achieve or to seek or work towards, and that's good. That means that your career can grow indefinitely. But it's really important that you remember that and just be at your best for yourself, rather than you try to be at your best for someone else or for other people who you think are watching. That makes sense? Yeah? Okay. We are going to focus, though, on being at our best and showing our best, not showing off, but showing our best and being able to have, like you were talking about, that you want a bunch of stuff in your past that you're proud of. But recognize you are always going to keep getting better, so the stuff in your past is always going to keep looking kind of worse.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be the man standing before me if you didn't have that past.
Exactly.
So you need to be also compassionate about the past self and what he did. And if you know from yourself that you were your authentic self back then, mm-hmm. and you did all your best back then it doesn't matter, because you can see, I grown from that.
Yeah. Catherine made up the expression, my best is the best. Stop looking at someone else and saying that's the best. Yeah. Because then it's never attainable, because you're never going to be that person, and maybe you'll never achieve that skill. Maybe you will. But better always be proud that if you know that you're doing your best, that's something you can take to the bank. That subtle, strong energy that comes with knowing you've done your best is unbeatable. And it's the same exact thing that all the best people do. They must. They probably push themselves a lot harder, and maybe some people into an unhealthy circumstance, but nonetheless, they push themselves at their best every single time. And at a certain point, the people who knowingly achieve best, like Michael Phelps winning so many gold medals, he has a subtle, strong energy that probably manifests for him the right circumstances in order to get that. Somewhere deep within his psyche that maybe he's not even aware of, but he definitely trained to. So that's that perfect point where you're at your best and you are the best, but you've pushed it to not an unhealthy point, and you're like really in your flow state. You like are the flow state, you know. So just with a few more minutes left, and then we'll do a little practice. You're going to want to also collect other people's memories of you. So something that's also challenging besides asking for people for the exchange is, if you post this online, would you please tag me in it? You like the show, would you please leave me a 5-star review? And almost everyone will say, yeah, of course, and then not. So it's not only that, you have to ask, get the yes from them, not a yeah, not a maybe. Get a yes. If you don't get a yes, then chances are it's probably not going to happen. That's okay too. But you have to put your, put your, not priorities, but your standards somewhere and keep pushing for it. And if a person does say yes and they don't, then it's up to you for you to be that polite thorn, that politely stern, and say, hey, I asked you to leave me that 5-star review. Would you please today, or would you let me know when you will soon? Or, hey, you posted this video or this picture of me and you didn't tag me. Would you please tag me now?
It's also interesting to start hearing the same words that people use about you. So if you repeatedly hear like magnetizing, or if you repeatedly hear like whatever it is, then you can use that in your own marketing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes after shows people say a bunch of stuff that you forget, but like I've tried to just keep it because I'm very prone to the doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's like a library of people's words, which
Mm-hmm.
is,
and I say, the people who you know are the most enthusiastic about you, ask them if they would write something for you. A testimonial, a Google review, or a Facebook review, or some sort of words, because you want that person's perspective to be reflected to others. And those are the people that are actually really easy. Find that small handful of people who you know are enthusiastic about what you do. They're basically your fans. And just ask them to write you something up and post it somewhere public. I know that I really appreciate, and I'm going to emulate this. Catherine and I have talked about this, but the only doctor of flow arts I know, her name's Kate Van Riegel. She is from the US, but she did her doctorate in poi in Auckland, New Zealand. She owns playpoi.com,
okay,
which is focused on elderly health. But she did an entire case study and proved how poi really improves the mental and physical capacities of elderly and people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's disease, So she posts a lot of times on her Instagram her testimonials as the post, and then like some pictures or videos of that person. I think that's a really good idea. Something Catherine and I learned too from social media is people read writing on your post pictures much more than they will read the captions.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So just know that people like to read nice, colorful words. So capture as many of those words from others as you can.
A lot of very basic.
I just have so by 3:30, I would really actually want to go to play in the park because
okay.
I need to meet some people there.
Yeah, sure.
So if we can just
we're just about to wrap this up.
By then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The last bit is to watch out and not make assumptions. The most challenging thing besides communicating really well to yourself, all the stuff that you've written down, the steps that you're going to take, the notes that you've taken, is learn how to communicate really well with other people. So in the instance of the exchange, you're going to learn how to communicate clearly and confidently what it is, beyond your intention is what it is you're doing. And if you're looking for a testimonial or review, it's your job not only to ask in that moment, but if you don't see it within, I usually put it as 72 hours. If the person hasn't responded to what they said they're going to do in 3 days, chances are they're not going to do it or they forgot. So that means I need to bring it back up again, and as politely but as sternly as I can and as clearly as I can, communicating as to not say, hey, you've insulted me, but also be like, hey, like politely, please honor that. It would mean a lot to me. It would really help me out if you would do that. And to your clients and everyone, whether it be your students or if you're going to make props, your people buying your products or the people who are hiring you for a show, the more you can communicate with them, the better. There's one thing I've noticed that I really am doing so much to get out of my reality, and it's been driving me crazy, is to get more people to communicate well. There's so many poor communicators out there. And it's because communication is a skill. People don't realize a lot gets lost in translation, and a lot gets lost in people thinking they sent something. Yeah, and assumptions, exactly. Don't assume that anybody knows anything. Stuff that for you is common sense, for a lot of people is not necessarily going to be common sense. And you want to find that line between not talking down to someone, but talking to them repetitiously like they're 5. Like they're just a kid, and you have to be really, really clear and repetitive, not too repetitive, but and not too wordy, but just finding that right thing. So I highly recommend that you start thinking about how you communicate, how other people communicate to you, and where do you fit in between professional and friendly communication? Because there's professional communication, which is like by the books, strict, being very clear, very concise. And then there's friendly communication, which uses slang, which is, full of good feelings and just kind of chit-chatting. For me, in turning this into workplay, I have to find a way to ride the line in between those two too. Communicating a lot, clear, concise, and repetitiously, at the same time keeping it as a friendly and flowing environment where there's not a whole lot of pressure on the person, and being as polite and conscientious as I can. But still, I hold to my own standard that it's better to have a little bit too much communication than a little bit not enough.
I think that one of the sentences that popped up in me is that I need to be mindful of not making myself weaker. So when I have compliments from people, it's oh, I'm not that good. Perhaps I should not take that and be mindful of not saying things that weaken my position unnecessarily.
Don't bring attention to your mistakes, ultimately. I mean, that's something I teach to fire spinners is if you hit yourself, don't bring attention to the fact that you hit yourself. See if you can flow right out of it. So if someone offers you a compliment, just receive it with grace. Just thanks, Or if you do something and you screwed up, know the line between admitting you did wrong and making amends, and just bringing extra attention to something you don't need to. Yeah. That's another thing that you have to develop some street smarts, but I might think of an exercise. I do it all the time when people just talk a lot of the times, and I don't mean to give my unsolicited advice, but people use certain words, and I'm like, you don't want to say that about yourself. You don't need to say that about yourself. And I have to find that line between what is being polite and friendly and what is kind of just, it's none of my business how they talk about themselves. Let them figure it out or not figure it out. Because it's, you want to have compassion, but also recognize we have to also practice that we're at the perfect place and perfect time, and so are others. Even if they're not, we're all growing. And if we bring attention and make it feel like things are not in the perfect place, perfect time, because clearly they're not, it will make a person who already has a sense of low self-esteem or has a lot of attention on their mistakes more. Even if your intentions are right, it could still bring another person down. So this is also a really good thing that will help with friendly relationships by building more professional aspects of yourself. You'll start to develop more of kind of the right, what is the word I'm looking for? The right way about going about things, the most
mindset.
The right mindset, but
The approach.
say it?
The approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, proper approaches in
Speaking
different
to clients
circumstances.
and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all for today. Does anyone have any quick questions before we finish this up? And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a WhatsApp group for us to not just share each other's contact, but for sharing resources, sharing notes. I'll upload this somewhere and I can send it to you and you can use it. I ask that you not share it with anybody. And if you do, ask them that they donate something to me. I'm thinking about putting something like this up
Yes.
to ask people if they would like to download it or something like that to make a little bit.
It's like pay what you can, sort of.
Yeah,
That would be awesome.
exactly.
Passive income's good.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. All right.